Thank you, everybody. Welcome, and thank you for coming to my talk on a new day, helping the students work through mathematical traumas. So if you haven't seen me before, I'm Dr. Jalan Ali from Compassionate Math. I do work with teachers and faculty, professional development, and I do workshops with students, primarily in an undergrad level, to help them work through math trauma. So this is my focus, is math trauma. And what this work is here is this is a story of how this workshop and this focus of my work now and Compassionate Math, how that came about. And this came about when I founded Compassionate Math and I started doing Compassionate Math. I was an assistant professor of mathematics and I'd taken a leave of absence from my institution. And I started doing work in the area of professional development and support for students, thinking about the socio-emotional factors that contribute to math success. And an institution came and they contacted me through somebody I know, and they said, we need help. We have a group of TRIO students. TRIO, if you do not know, are marginalized. It's a program by the Department of Education, God rest its soul, to support marginalized students, first-generation students, students who are unlikely to succeed traditionally at university level. And so this was a TRIO program specifically for pre-service teachers. So you have students who have been traditionally marginalized educationally, very low income, very likely the first in their family to go to college. So extremely motivated, extremely ready, extremely capable, but every single one of them couldn't wait to get into the classroom and make a difference, but was petrified of their math requirement. They did not want to do the math class. And the more stories I heard during this call, it said the students tell stories of teachers screaming at them, of their university faculty telling them not to bother, of people asking them, why are they in this class? Of them just seeing comfortable with algebra, but as soon as a fraction went on the board, they just froze and they couldn't do the work. And accidentally, I said, oh, you know what? These kids sound like they're traumatized. That sounds like trauma. And the word came out and she was like, oh, and I was like, math trauma. Now, I'm gonna tell you, I'm not the first person to coin the term math trauma. It is not an area of research in math education, but I am a grounded researcher. And so I wanted to go back and think about this word that came right out of me, and I wanted to explore it a little further. So I explored the area of trauma, wounding, and dehumanization. Because I had an idea of how to help these kids, and I didn't want to just dive into something without being grounded in the research. And this is where I went. Go with me on this trip. Thompson's Collective Healing Towards a Conceptual Framework from the journal Genocide and Prevention. I went to the area of genocide studies to explore what collective healing looks like, because the way that I think about it is what happens in math class happens to so many of us. I'm a victim of math trauma, even though I'm standing here with all of my wonderful credentials and publications. But I was once told that I wasn't intelligent enough to get a PhD. And I was told that I should be dropping classes, right? So I've experienced this same trauma, and I wanted to explore this a little bit further. And Thompson's work really helped me see how to take what was happening in our math classes and try to move forward to it. So Thompson talks about being wounded as being a recipient of an action by another that dehumanizes or treats an individual as less than human. Okay? This is what dehumanization is. And dehumanization is not recognizing the humanity in another person and violating or failing to recognize the inherent worth of another being. So not recognizing that, it's not that somebody is good enough for me for this reason, it is just that you are human and therefore you are valuable. If we do not experience that, then we are being dehumanized. And in the math community, Rochelle Gutierrez writes very powerfully about how mathematics is a dehumanizing space. So there is already research in this area. And we talk about material things, this remote, right? That camera. Material things are only good enough for what they provide us. And if we start treating humans materially as just being able to be good enough to what you can provide me, then we are further dehumanizing ourselves. So, does that happen in math class? That's the question. And if that's the question, then yes, an argument for trauma can be made. So we say, we preview that dehumanization occurs when a person is treated as an object or less than a person. And the core idea is that a being that has non-derivative value is treated as if they were value only derivatively, as in only by what they can contribute. Dehumanizing constitutes a failure to respect and appreciate the nature of the kind of value of a person. Okay? So does this happen in math class? And how do we see this? So first of all, what harm do we get from dehumanizing? Dehumanization is the opposite of well-being, of feeling good. Okay? So what happens when you are feeling good? Your life is composed of processes, activities, and experiences suited to your interests given relevant sociocultural contexts. Okay, this is what well-being looks like. You're in an environment and you're in a space where you are comfortable being able to navigate. Activities are seen as being non-instrumentally viable, right? So you're doing something for the sake of doing it, not for an objective reason, for an intrinsic reason. And these activities generally reduce pain, anxiety, anger, or sadness, things that just bring us joy, make us feel good, make us feel like we are worthy of existence. Okay, this is what happens when you feel good. This is what happens when you're in a state of well-being. You have positive relationships with people in society and a willingness to engage. And you have awareness of feeling like a being who is valued and having dignity. So what happens in math class? Are we valued for our dignity, or are we valued for whether or not we could solve for X? Are we taught that we can struggle and it's okay? And are we taught that you have to work and you have to move forward and there's no opportunity for growth? Right? Are we looking that math is a joyful space? Now, I argue that mathematics is one of the most natural and innate human activities that we can do. We use mathematics to understand, learn, and control our environments. There's a natural need to want to do mathematics. But if that natural impulse is taken away from us, then are we living in a state of well-being? So, is there math class? Is there trauma in math? Well, thank you. Should I just skip the slides then? Right? Is there trauma in math class? Do we see this? Right? So trauma is the experiential and psychophysical symptoms or manifestations of the various forms of dehumanization that we just explored. And these traumatic effects of dehumanization can be transmitted transgenerationally from one to another. Okay? So let's look at the sociocultural factors that contribute to mathematical success. I give you the compassionate math framework. The compassionate math framework is a research-based framework. So going from genocide studies to math education, these are the socio-emotional factors that contribute to mathematical success. And these are the factors that basically are the emotional factors that kind of get in the way, that overwhelm someone's cognitive load, that prevents them. That's the brick wall that sits between me, my natural human self, and mathematics. Math anxiety, the fear of doing math. Now, math anxiety, there is definitely, you were asking a question from previously. Math anxiety is a phenomenon that has been found to be transmitted from parent to child or from teacher to child. If a teacher, particularly elementary level female teacher, has math anxiety, it is very likely that their, generally speaking, female students will pick up on that anxiety and then develop their own math anxiety, believe it or not. Same thing occurs with parents to children. This is why I do a lot of talk with, don't talk to your kids and say, I don't do math, math is hard, go ask your father, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, right? Because that math anxiety will be transmitted into your children. Stereotype threat and imposter syndrome. Imposter syndrome is the feeling that you do not belong in a space, and therefore you have to prove your belonging consistently over and over again, even externally, if not to yourself. Why? Because you're going to be found out eventually. Someone's going to know, and they're going to know that you're faking, and they're going to know you don't belong. Stereotype threat is an anxiety that is triggered when you are reminded that you are a member of a population that stereotypically over or underperforms. The example I like to often use is that, generally speaking, somebody might think that I don't know how to parallel park my car because I'm a girl and girls can't drive, right? So if somebody's going to say, oh, well, she's not going to be able to pull into that spot, I'm going to get more nervous, not because if I mess up, Jolan messed up. It's that if I mess up, I am reinforcing, I am standing for all women right now as I'm sitting behind the wheel and pulling in, right? And therefore, I will be more anxious in that moment. Attitudes and values. Is mathematics important to you? Is mathematics important to your people? If it's not important, who cares? I'm not doing math. I have way more important things to do in my world. There are infinite videos on TikTok that I need to be seeing right now. I don't need to be doing 50 problems if it's not important or if it's not valuable. Math identity. Are you a math person? Do people treat you like a math person? Do people talk to you like a math person? Do you believe that you're a math person? Efficacy, enjoyment, and motivation. Do you believe that do you have the self-confidence that you will be successful in mathematics? Are you motivated? And by motivation, I think about intrinsic motivators. Think about my own true nature and my own desire to be successful in this area, to do whatever it is that I want to do. Do I find joy? Again, mathematics is a human endeavor filled with beauty and wonder and exploration. I promise, like I swear to you, it's true. I will tell you that in moments where I really, truly make a breakthrough in mathematics, the joy that fills my body and the tears that well in my eye, I'm not lying to you, is on the level of music. When you're playing and you're hitting the right note, or when you draw something that is just so beautiful, like when you do something and you know that it is pure and true and yours. And mathematics does the same thing. And equity and social justice. The granddaddy in the room, or the mama, or the matriarch. Why? Because this bubble is a reason why so many other bubbles exist, why so many of these pieces go together. And so all of these are pillars in and areas of research in mathematics education, which blows people's minds. And when you talk to students about this, or you talk to math faculty about this, it blows their minds as well. And now for me, I take a little bit of liberty here, and I look at this in a little bit more of an intersectional way. This research is much too difficult to really think about how all of these pieces play together and weave into one another. But listening to students' experiences, this is, I see that there are lines going through all of these bubbles. Now, if you have a learning disability or a learning impediment, right? These challenges are even more significant, okay? And so what do we have here? Again, do we see this? So yes, number one, check. We have these psychophysical symptoms manifesting, demonstrating that there's trauma. But what about this dehumanization being transmitted transgenerationally? Is this true? Well, I have one piece, and I call this the cycle of benign neglect. And the cycle of benign neglect posits that since World War II, our math curricula has shifted from procedural to conceptual mathematics back and forth, mostly based on our national interests and needs, the development and understanding of mathematics learning, like how best to teach math, and a lot of other factors that have contributed to these changes. Now, I was a child growing up in the 80s under a nation at risk. We were working with a back to basics curriculum. It was extremely procedural. Now, I have a child who's going to school taking Common Core work. Now, this is a very conceptual curriculum. Here, I learned algorithmically how to do my work. This is why you have parents screaming at their child, why can't you just carry the one? And the child says, I don't know what that means. We have to add in groups. And the parent says, what do you mean adding groups? And the child says, I don't know what that means. That's why I'm asking you for help. Now there's a generational gap here, and there's a generational disconnect. Okay, and this disconnect happens consistently, like several times as we leap. And so what happens is, so your parents, my parents, our teachers are also victims of these cycles. And this compounds. So what happens here is you put all of these pieces together, and yes, math trauma is real, and we experience math trauma. And so how do we work through this? And so I developed this program. It is a path through trauma. This is the workshop that I've spoken to so much of you about. And it starts with, again, I created this out of my own work, but I still based it on Thompson's good work. And in this piece, Thompson says, healing doesn't mean restoring dignity. It means acknowledging the harm that was done and the power inherent in each individual. I am not here to heal your traumas in math class. I'm here to help you find your self-worth so you could stand in your own power and be able to feel your full sense of being a mathematical being, because human beings are mathematical beings. And so this is the path through trauma. First, we start by understanding the sources of our trauma. And then we forgive others and ourselves. We motivate ourselves to begin anew. And then we empower our mathematical selves. And this is the work that I do. So to understand the sources of our trauma, we start by doing activities and personal reflection. We remove feelings of isolation because when you do this in a group setting, then people start talking to one another and you go, oh my God, I wasn't the only one. Everybody else in math class was nodding along and taking notes and right? And everyone was great. I was just nodding along because everybody else was nodding along. But wait, you were all just as dumb as me? That's great. Because now we can find solidarity. And then, and I use the compassionate math framework. I give the compassionate math framework to the students to help them understand that language is a source of comfort and understanding. When you have words for your experiences, then you can articulate them. Mr. Rogers says what's mentionable is manageable. When we have words, we can manage our experiences. And then we move on to forgive others and ourselves. So the empathy comes in from the cycle of benign neglect. Maybe my teacher wasn't a jerk when I asked why and they said, shut up, just finish the worksheet. Maybe they were protecting themselves because they had a little bit of difficulty with the content. Because the outcome of the cycle of benign neglect is that through those generational changes, parents and teachers received very, very little training to help them manage these shifts. It is only very, very recently that professional development is required of teachers. And unfortunately, most of that PD in content space is not most of that PD in math is not focused on content. It's not focused on teaching the content and the work. It's usually a lot of other nonsense that makes teachers hate professional development, which, as somebody who does professional development, I have a problem with that. Which is why I say my PD doesn't suck. So, and then we discuss the factors that are tied to institutional inequities. What happens here is that what you want in forgiving yourself and forgiving others is to understand that none of what you've experienced has anything to do with you as an innate human being. It has nothing to do with you. It has to do with the circumstances that you experienced. And those circumstances are why you're in the situation that you're in. But you're perfectly capable of moving forward. Knowing that human beings are mathematical beings. And then we spend time with personal meditations to forgive and rewrite our story. Okay? So that's the forgiveness phase. Then we motivate. And our motivation, we're reflecting on why are we in college. I do this work with adults, so college students above teachers and faculty. For K-12 kiddos, they're a little too young for this work. So you work with teachers and you work with principals to do this work. So you reflect on your motivation. Why are you in college? What are you doing here? And how does mathematics fit into that space, into that motivation? And then we work on exercises in resilience and grit. And then this is my favorite part. I have students write a letter to their future selves. When you're lost, when you're ready to quit, when you hate yourself, when you hate everything, then you come back and you read this letter. It's time travel back to this moment in a space where you felt safe and where you felt empowered. And then we empower our mathematical selves. And you understand, where does learning really happen? It happens when you're working and reflecting for yourself, not when your instructor is helping you. They're just the guide. They get tools for success in mathematics classes that they can take with them. We talk about seeking help proactively, not reactively, and what those triggers are. And then we finally end up working together on a math problem. Now, let me tell you what happens when you get a room full of people who are perfectly afraid of math and hate math and don't like math, and then you give them a math problem to work on. Oh my God, they're so engaged and they're so excited to do the work. It's like they're chomping at the bit. I usually give them instructions and they're already solving a problem. I'm like, no, wait, there's one more thing to do. And they're off and running, which is great. So I have some qualitative results for you from the work that I've done. And this is feedback that I've gotten from students who've participated. First says, I would say that it wasn't actually about math, but about tips about changing your psychology around math. It was inspiring to rediscover the potential I have for understanding and be able to work through math problems, and that I was valued for not being able to work as fast as others do. Why? Because fast does not equal smart. It was very related to problems I thought happened to me, to just me, but I learned how relevant it is to everyone else. It shows the reason behind why math seems scary and helps work through it. Inspiring, realistic. I love that she spoke about how trauma can happen and specifically highlighted that BIPOC and LGBTQI plus persons are affected by it. And this one was my favorite. This one made me cry. Life-changing. So this is the work that I did. When I did this workshop, I walked away, like it was halfway through the workshop, there was a moment where I stopped and I said, oh my God, I think I really hit on something really powerful and really amazing. And so I shifted, and this has now become my real focus and my life's work, is to help students work through math trauma by providing good professional development. That doesn't suck. And doing these workshops with students. So I want to thank you so much. I will be in the exhibit hall if you want to come by and ask me questions. I will note that tomorrow morning from 8 to 10, I am doing professional development, so I will be a little late tomorrow morning. So, but otherwise, I will be around and happy to answer questions. Although I think we're out of time, so you can meet me outside.